16 profound philosophical stories. The calmer the heart, the clearer the mind. The virtue and talent of a person are always witnessed by heaven and earth. I am confident that by simply listening to these stories for a short while, you yourself will be surprised at the depth of your understanding and personal growth. Story 1. The calmer the mind, the sharper the intellect. One should not let a moment of happiness affect others and themselves. Long ago, there was a boy named Min who became an orphan at the age of 7, losing both parents. He wandered around with no one to rely on, begging for food to survive, enduring poverty and loneliness. Each evening, as the sun set, he struggled to find a place to sleep, sometimes having to lie under a tree. Min's life continued this way until one stormy night. Fortunately, he found shelter in a large temple. Upon entering, he met the abbot, a kind-hearted man. Though Min appeared dirty, with dark skin and unkempt hair, the abbot smiled warmly and asked about his situation. Min looked at him with clear eyes, moved, and shared his life story. Feeling pity for the young boy, the abbot decided to take him in. After bathing and having his head shaved, Min looked refreshed. He was no longer a wandering boy, but had become a novice monk. Every day, he diligently carried out tasks around the temple, such as carrying water, cooking rice, and sweeping the courtyard. The abbot was pleased with Min's obedience and quick learning. Not long after, the abbot began teaching Min to read and write, and allowed him to study Buddhist scriptures. Jason quickly absorbed new knowledge, and whenever he meditated, he could hold the cross-legged position for a long time. He often shared what he learned with other monks, earning praise for his intelligence and maturity. However, Min gradually developed a bad habit. Every time he learned something new, he would write his thoughts everywhere, on walls, in the garden, and often boasted about his knowledge to the other monks. He became impatient with their guidance and judged others based on his own perceptions. Noticing this, the abbot decided to teach Jason a lesson. One day, he gave Min a pot of primrose flowers and instructed him to observe them at night during his work. The following morning, Min eagerly approached the abbot, excited to report about the flowers. He described how they bloomed under the moonlight, releasing a delicate fragrance. The abbot asked, "When the flowers bloomed, did they wake you?" Min quickly replied, "No, master, they were very quiet." The abbot gently responded, "Then why did you think they needed to be loud to show their beauty?" Min paused in silence before answering, "I understand now, master. I will correct my ways." The abbot smiled, seeing that Min had learned a lesson in humility. Primroses do not need to flaunt their beauty, they quietly bloom, spreading their fragrance to adorn life. Likewise, people should value humility and patience toward others. No matter how intelligent one may be, they should remain humble to be loved and respected by others. Story 2. Maintaining inner calm for success. Many people dream of success, but not everyone understands the fundamental principles to achieve it. The 2 short stories below will give you insight into the key factors that can help you find your unique path and reach the place Jason desires. One summer morning, under the shade of an ancient tree by the river, a monk was teaching his 4 disciples. His words were moving and profound, captivating not only his disciples but also the birds, who stopped to listen in silence. After finishing the lesson, he instructed, "I need to step out for about an hour. Please sit here quietly, review the lesson, and remember not to talk until I return. Then we'll discuss today's teachings further." The 4 disciples responded in unison, "Yes, Master." After the monk left, the 4 disciples quickly sat cross-legged to reflect on the teachings. For the first half hour, nothing happened, only the sound of the wind and waves lapping at the riverbank. But soon, the sky began to darken with clouds and the wind grew stronger. One disciple, unable to resist, looked up and said, "It seems like it's going to rain heavily today." Hearing this, another disciple immediately replied, "Master instructed us not to talk. You have broken the rule." The three disciples began arguing and criticizing each other. However, the fourth disciple remained silent, focused on contemplating the teachings. When the monk returned, the second disciple quickly pointed at the first and said, "Master, while you were away, he spoke." The monk listened and replied, "From what I've heard, it seems all three of you have fallen short. Only the fourth disciple followed my instructions faithfully. I believe he will achieve great things in the future. The three of you should use this lesson to remind yourselves, you broke my instructions over trivial matters. Practicing self-discipline is a serious endeavor. If you cannot treat my guidance seriously, you will struggle to progress in the future." The three disciples bowed their heads in silence at their teacher's words, having learned a valuable lesson. The second story occurred when a professor was strolling through a university campus and noticed a group of students practicing an exercise amidst a crowd. His attention was drawn to one male student who seemed troubled, unable to perform a difficult move. The professor approached him and patted him on the shoulder, asking, "What's bothering you?" The student replied, "I've tried so hard but still can't do this move." The professor smiled, "You have tried hard, but to succeed, you must first learn to listen to your body. Come with me." The professor led him to a stream in the forest behind the school and asked him to sit by the stream and quietly watch the flowing water. After a while, he pointed to the stream and asked, "Do you see the large rocks blocking the way? Do you think this bothers the stream?" The student was surprised. "No, teacher. The water just flows around them and continues onward." The professor replied, "Exactly. Learn from the water, and you'll understand how to listen to your body." Returning to the campus, the student practiced his move with a calm and focused mind, paying no attention to the surrounding noise. The result was surprising. He executed the move flawlessly, without any difficulty. These two stories leave us with a profound lesson about success. To succeed, you must stay committed and listen to the guidance of those with experience. Don't let fleeting temptations or external events distract you from your important goals. Stay focused and follow principles, and you are certain to achieve the things men desires. Each person has their own inner awareness of who to is. To reach the pinnacle of success, you first need to understand yourself, set clear goals, and maintain a peaceful mindset. By keeping inner calm, you'll have the serenity and far-reaching vision to avoid being clouded by trivial matters. Only by maintaining tranquility can you avoid being swept away by the currents of fame, emotions, and desires. Story 3: The Keeper of Happiness. There is an old saying, "Men build the house, women make it a home." This phrase affirms the role of women in keeping the flame of happiness alive in every family. It also implies that finding the right woman is more important than possessing many other things in life. To illustrate the crucial role of women in maintaining family happiness, let's look at the story What the Old Man Does Is Always Right by Danish author Hans Christian Andersen. The story tells of an elderly farmer couple living together on a small farm. They owned almost nothing in the world apart from a horse that survived by grazing on the grass by the roadside. One day, the husband discussed with his wife his plan to sell the horse or exchange it for something more useful. His wife fully supported his decision, and so the old man set off for the market. When he arrived, he saw a man with a cow. He thought cow's milk would be very beneficial. Trading the horse for this cow would be worthwhile. So he approached the man, and they exchanged the horse for the cow. After the exchange, the old man continued on his way. Along the road, he met a man with a sheep and thought that a sheep would be just as useful. So he traded the cow for the sheep. A little further, he met a man with a goose. After some thought, he traded the sheep for the goose. Finally, as he neared the town, he met several other people along the way and made various other trades. Regardless of what he exchanged, he believed that each decision he made was reasonable. This story demonstrates that in life, there are those who always trust and support their partner, even if their decisions may not seem entirely wise by conventional standards. But it is this trust and unity between husband and wife that creates lasting happiness. The role of women in the family is not only to maintain a warm home, but also to inspire, encourage, and motivate their loved ones. This is why it is often said that a woman is the keeper of happiness, the foundation for a peaceful and long-lasting family. Story 4: The Stubborn Rock in the Mind. A stubborn rock in one's mindset can become a major obstacle, preventing us from exploring and creating. There was a family living beside a vegetable garden where a large rock sat prominently. The rock was about 40 centimeters wide and 10 centimeters high. Anyone who passed through the garden would easily trip on it, and some even got scratched. One day, the son asked his father, "Why don't we remove this annoying rock and get it out of the way?" The father replied, "That rock? It's been there since your grandfather's time. Let's just leave it as it is. Its size is so big, who knows when we'd be able to remove it. Rather than wasting energy trying to dig it out, just be careful when you walk by. It will help you improve your reflexes." And so, the years went by, and the rock remained there. The son, now grown and married, still encountered the rock. One day, his wife complained, "Father, that rock in the garden bothers me so much. How about we hire someone to remove it tomorrow?" The father replied again, "Just leave it, dear. That rock is very heavy. If it could be removed, I would have done it long ago. Why else would I leave it here until now?" Feeling frustrated, the daughter-in-law, who had tripped over the rock countless times, decided one morning to take matters into her own hands. She grabbed a shovel and a bucket of water to soften the soil around the rock, prepared for a day's work. Surprisingly, within just a few minutes, she managed to lift the rock. Looking closely, she realized the rock wasn't as large as she had imagined. It was merely the outer layer that gave the impression of size. Reflecting on this, if you cling to negative thinking and view life as a steep mountain, you will never reach the top. If you see the world as heavy and hopeless, you're creating that weight and hopelessness for yourself. Therefore, if you want to change the world around you, you must first change your own mindset. Story 5: Patiently Pursuing Goals. In 1858, a beautiful baby girl was born into a wealthy family in Sweden. However, not long after, she developed symptoms of paralysis of unknown cause and lost the ability to walk. One time, the family went on a cruise. The captain's wife told her about a beautiful bird called the Bird of Paradise. The story fascinated the little girl so much that she desperately wanted to see the bird in person. Her nanny left her on the deck while she went to find the captain. Unable to contain her curiosity, the girl pleaded with a crew member to take her to see the bird. The crew member, unaware of her paralysis, guided her to where the bird was perched. Then, a miracle happened. With an intense desire, the little girl forgot her condition, held the crew member's hand, and slowly started to walk. From that moment on, her illness was completely cured. Story 6: Don't blame your fate. In life, everyone faces worries and troubles. No matter how hard you try, there are times when you feel tired and powerless against reality. The truth is, whether we are rich or poor comes down to one single difference. There was a young man who frequently complained about his fate. He felt that life had not favored him, his friends didn't treat him as he wished, his job was dull with low income, and none of his possessions were high quality. One day, while sitting in a park, he looked over at the luxury mall across the street, filled with bustling shoppers, and felt saddened. At that moment, an old man passed by and stopped to chat with him. The old man asked, "Why do you look so sad?" The young man replied, "I don't understand why. Despite working hard, I'm still very poor." The old man said, "You are a very wealthy person." Surprised, the young man responded, "How can you say that? I am truly poor." The old man continued, "If I wanted one of your fingers, I would pay you 30 gold coins. Would you accept?" The young man instantly refused. The old man then asked, "If I wanted your hand, I would offer you 300 gold coins. Would you accept?" Again, the young man declined. Next, the old man asked, "If I wanted your eyes, I would offer 3,000 gold coins. How about that?" The young man smiled, realizing the value of his eyes, which allowed him to see the world around him, the beautiful sights, friendly smiles, and even the hardships of life. Then the old man asked, "Would you exchange your life for 30,000 gold coins?" The young man placed his hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat. He recalled all his memories, from his childhood to his dreams. He realized how precious life is and that nothing could ever compare. The young man, deeply moved, said to the old man, "I would not exchange my life for anything." His story has awakened many of us from a long dream. In modern society, where money is often seen as everything, we tend to forget gratitude and satisfaction. Life is shaped by thoughts and beliefs. As we grow up, our desires become habits, and positive habits bring strength, while negative habits lead only to decline. Complaining is a negative habit. It steals our energy and time, becoming an enemy of success and happiness. The ancients taught that if you value only money, you will live a difficult life. If you center your life around your children, you will live in exhaustion. If you base your life on love alone, you will easily be hurt. Without finding a purpose and meaning in life, we will endlessly wander in search of happiness. In reality, gain and loss in life are only relative and depend entirely on our perception. If you do not understand the value of life, no amount of wealth will bring happiness. True happiness comes from being content with what you have and nurturing a pure heart. One can only find fulfillment by cultivating virtues, kindness, and gratitude. With this, they will be filled with positive energy, making life genuinely abundant, regardless of wealth or hardship. Story 7. He who cannot control himself cannot be truly free. We often overlook small issues, thinking they don't have serious consequences. But one drop adds to another, and eventually, they accumulate into a river or lake. If we cannot manage small matters, we will also lose control when faced with greater ones. It's like a great tree being eaten away by termites. It's only a matter of time. There was a student who always kept his distance when he saw classmates smoking, knowing that smoking is harmful to health. Once, while traveling with friends, he saw them smoking, and one friend invited him to try it. He refused, but his friends persuaded him, saying one puff wouldn't hurt. He finally took a puff and immediately started coughing, with tears and a runny nose streaming down his face. He wondered, if smoking is so unpleasant, why do so many people do it? Later, his friend invited him to smoke again, assuring him that the second time wouldn't make him cough. Hesitant, he eventually took another puff. Although he still coughed, it was less severe. Over time, smoking became a habit, and he eventually became addicted. The philosopher Plato warned that once a habit is formed, it's very hard to change. A young man once said, "Just seize the moment. What harm can it do?" Plato replied seriously, "When you try something once, it gradually becomes a habit. Then, it's no longer a small matter." Habits like swearing, losing one's temper, or smoking often start unintentionally, but by the time we realize it, they are already deeply rooted. This is the danger of habits. We think we are embracing freedom, but once bad habits form, we become slaves to them instead. I once heard about oil tycoon Paul Getty during World War II. One night, he woke up at 2 a.m., craving a cigarette. He turned on the light and reached for the pack on his bedside table, but couldn't find it. With a sigh, he dressed and went out in the pouring rain to buy cigarettes. Along the way, he suddenly stopped, realizing what he was doing and feeling a deep fear of the power of habit. From that moment, he resolved never to smoke again. A person who cannot control himself cannot speak of true freedom. Eating one bite won't make you gain weight, but if you continue eating excessively, obesity will follow. At first, we nurture habits, but then our habits end up nurturing us. Good habits are difficult to establish, but once formed, they benefit us for life. Conversely, bad habits are easy to form, but once they take hold, they control us for life. Story 8. Not appreciating what we have, only regretting when it's gone. Once upon a time, there was a kind and humble woodcutter. Every day, he went into the forest to gather firewood to trade for food, living peacefully and happily. One day, like any other, he went into the forest. On his way, he found an injured silver bird with feathers that shimmered brilliantly, incredibly beautiful. The woodcutter had never seen such a lovely bird, so he decided to take it home to care for and heal its wounds. While he cared for it, the silver bird sang for him every day. Its clear and gentle song filled him with joy and happiness. But then one day, a neighbor saw the bird and told him, "I once saw a golden bird. It's far more beautiful and sings 100 times better than this silver bird." Hearing this, the woodcutter suddenly thought, "So there is a golden bird." From then on, he became preoccupied with thoughts of the golden bird, wondering how beautiful it must be and how wonderful its song would sound. Gradually, he lost interest in the silver bird's song and no longer felt the same joy. One evening, the woodcutter sat by his door, looking out at the distant horizon at sunset, hoping that one day he might catch a glimpse of the golden bird, even just once. By this time, the silver bird had fully recovered and was preparing to leave him. It flew close and sang a farewell song for its benefactor. When it finished, the woodcutter only sighed and said, "Your song is nice, but the golden bird's song is even nicer. Your feathers are beautiful, but the golden bird's are far more beautiful." The silver bird circled him 3 times in farewell, then spread its wings and flew toward the horizon. As it flew into the setting sun, he suddenly realized that the bird's feathers shimmered with a golden glow in the sunlight, magnificent beyond words. Only then did he understand that the golden bird he had been searching for was, in fact, the silver bird. It was what he had been seeking all along, but it was too late. Sometimes, we are so focused on chasing distant dreams that we fail to appreciate and cherish what we already have. Only when it is gone do we understand its value and preciousness. But by then, what was once precious has already become part of the past. Often, happiness is right beside us, but we fail to recognize it, ignoring it in pursuit of far-off dreams. In truth, happiness is not something distant. It's only because we don't know how to cherish it. There is a proverb, "If you don't keep what you have, don't go looking for it once it's gone." Never let precious things slip away, only to regret them later. Cherish what you have, treasure the present and the people around you. Happiness always smiles upon those who know how to appreciate it. Story 9. Holding big ambitions without forgetting the small details. By the edge of the forest, Master Zen sat quietly, as still as a statue. After 49 years of arduous practice, he had reached the final stage of enlightenment. Only 90 days remained before he would attain complete awakening. Surrounding him were the distant calls of gibbons and the gentle rustling of wind through the autumn maple leaves. For many long years, Master Zen remained steadfast, unaffected by the solitude around him. Throughout his meditation, he endured small creatures like insects and ants crawling over him, and even snakes slithering by his feet. Yet Master Zen sat unperturbed in the lotus position, wholly still. His sole aspiration was to transcend suffering and break free from the cycles of rebirth. One day, his divine hearing ability awakened, allowing him to understand the language of all beings, from birds to trees. One morning, a pair of shrikes chirped excitedly as they flew over and decided to build a nest right in Zen Master's ear. They chirped, played, and even brought bits of twigs and leaves to construct their nest around his ear. After days of rain and storm, the two birds had built a round nest in his left ear. When the female laid eggs, the pair took turns incubating them, filling the air around the master with the constant flutter of wings and cheerful chirping. One day, the female bird, hungry, pecked lightly at the master's ear. Though uncomfortable and in pain, Zen Master remained calm and still. Day after day, the pair busily tended to their young, whose high-pitched chirps filled the air from dawn to dusk. Yet Master Zen bore it all, keeping his mind peaceful. Finally, only one day remained until Zen Master would attain enlightenment. That day, the female bird flew out in search of food, but luck was not on her side, and she couldn't find any until dusk. When she returned to the nest, the two shrikes quarreled out of impatience, filling the air with loud, heated bickering. The noise grew so intense that Zen Master could no longer concentrate. Frustrated, he finally yanked the nest out of his ear, exclaiming, "Over something so small, you bicker so loudly you've made me deaf." As soon as he spoke, he felt as though he was falling from a great height. The light of enlightenment faded, and in that one moment of anger, his 49 years of meditation vanished. There is an old saying, 3 feet of ice is not formed in a single day of cold. Small, seemingly harmless tests, when left unchecked, can build into obstacles that can undermine even the strongest resolve. The small birds may have seemed innocent, but their noise ultimately cost the master his hard-won achievement. The Buddha's teachings remind us that the virtuous must not overlook the small details. Maintaining a pure heart and steady mind helps us overcome obstacles, no matter their size. In a single moment of anger, the master destroyed a lifetime of spiritual progress. How sad, how regrettable. Story 10, Fate has arranged everything, but how? Once upon a time, there was a very lazy young man who dreamed of a life of ease, where he could obtain food without any effort. One day, while wandering in search of something to eat, he came across an orchard. The sight of golden pears and ripe red apples made him crave them more than ever. Without much thought, he looked around to make sure no one was watching and prepared to steal a few ripe fruits. However, just as he climbed the tree, he saw the farmer rushing toward him with a stick. Realizing it was the orchard owner, the lazy young man quickly slid down and ran with all his strength into a nearby forest. Exhausted, he decided to climb an old tree to both hide and rest. While sitting in the tree, he suddenly noticed a goat with only 2 legs moving calmly and looking quite content. The young man thought, how can this goat live so happily? With only 2 legs, how does it find food and escape from predators? Lost in thought, he saw a lion approaching the goat. All the nearby animals fled in fear, but the goat stood still, unable to run with only 2 legs. To the young man's amazement, the lion didn't attack but instead left a piece of meat for the goat. Feeling thrilled, he thought, could it be that the heavens have arranged everything, that nature has a plan to take care of the weak? With that idea in mind, the young man left the forest and sat waiting for someone to bring him food. Days passed, but no one came to feed him. Finally, unable to endure his hunger, he left and happened to meet a wise sage along the way. The young man shared his story with the sage, who then offered him some food and water. After eating, the young man asked, "Dear sage, heaven took care of that disabled goat, so why didn't it show the same mercy to me and let me go hungry?" The sage smiled and replied, "It's true that heaven has arranged everything for us, and you are also a part of that plan. But, my son, you misunderstood its intention. Heaven did not want you to be like the goat, rather, it intended for you to be the lion." The sage continued, "Indeed, everything has its place. Eastern wisdom calls this heaven's decree. But how can we understand the plan heaven has for us? The lazy, who leave their lives to fate, will only find poverty, while the greedy who struggle without rest fail to see that if something is not part of their destiny, no amount of effort will yield it. And even if they succeed, they will pay a price for what they forcefully seize through endless struggle. Each person's fate is different, influenced by karma and actions from past lives. Doing good builds virtue, wrongdoing builds karma. This is why some lives are full of ease, while others face hardship. The ancients say, just be a good person, and the blue sky will arrange the rest for you. Story 11. When one has truly matured, suffering will cease. At 18, people are often considered adults. But this maturity is only physical. Achieving maturity in awareness and spirit can take a lifetime. A young man once approached a master to express his deep inner suffering. "When you have truly matured, you will no longer feel suffering," said the master. Surprised, the young man responded, "But I am already mature." The master replied, "The maturity you speak of is only that of age and body." Curious, the young man asked, "Aside from age and physical maturity, is there another kind of maturity?" "Yes, there is," the master answered gently. "It is the maturity of the heart. Your inner self has not truly matured, and that is why you still feel pain." Then, the master took out 2 melons, one ripe and one unripe. He cut both in half and asked the young man, "Compare these 2 cross sections. What differences do you see?" The young man observed carefully and replied, "The unripe melon is hollow inside, while the ripe one is full of flesh. Also, the center of the ripe melon contains many seeds, while the unripe one has none." The master explained, "We know that a ripe fruit is sweet, while an unripe one is bitter and sour. Why is this? Because the unripe fruit has an undeveloped, incomplete interior." "What kind of inner self is considered mature and complete?" the young man asked. Smiling, the master said, "Just like this ripe melon, the heart must be filled. The seeds inside represent achievements, hopes, and faith. A ripe fruit is full of hope and faith, which is proof of its maturity. That is why it becomes sweet. Humans are the same. When their inner selves are solid, filled with hope and faith, they will be truly happy." Story 12. In life, some things are better left unknown. In life, sometimes not knowing is better than knowing everything clearly. Once, 2 people fell into the water. One had excellent eyesight, while the other was nearsighted. Both struggled to swim to safety, but after a while, they began to feel exhausted. Suddenly, the person with good eyesight noticed a small boat drifting toward them. The nearsighted person could only see a blurry shape, so both put all their effort into swimming toward what they thought was a boat. As they swam, the person with good eyesight realized it wasn't a boat but a rotting log. Seeing this, he stopped swimming and gave up hope. Meanwhile, the nearsighted person, unaware that it was just a log, kept swimming. He eventually reached the log, clung to it, and soon realized he was close to shore. Thanks to this, he saved himself, while the person with good eyesight gave up and drowned. On another occasion, two people were diagnosed with cancer. One had very sharp hearing and overheard the doctor saying he had only 3 months left to live. The other had poor hearing, and even when the doctor spoke directly to him, he could not hear clearly. Strangely, the man who didn't hear well not only lived past 3 months, but remained healthy 2 years later. Meanwhile, the one who clearly heard the prognosis lived exactly 3 months, as predicted. In life, there are some things better left unknown. Sometimes, innocence and a lack of knowledge bring us greater joy and happiness. As the ancients said, ignorance can be a blessing, because that very ignorance can help us live peacefully amid life's complexities. Story 13, learn this, and you will have no enemies across the world. There is a story that tells of a time when a lion and a tiger had a disagreement, and they decided to fight to determine the winner. After a fierce battle, both were badly injured. Exhausted, the lion said to the tiger, "If only you hadn't taken my territory, we wouldn't be in this state." Hearing this, the tiger replied in surprise, "I never intended to take your territory. I thought you wanted to seize mine, which is why I acted this way." This story shows us the importance of mutual understanding in dealing with others. How can we understand one another when conflicts arise? The answer lies in restraint and calmness. When we are angry, we often lose control, which can complicate matters further. No matter how strong a bond two people share, without proper communication, words become meaningless. Saying that we need to understand each other is one thing, but if each person insists on being right, it's merely an argument, not true communication. In conversation, 70% is about emotion, and only 30% is about content. People think differently, and misunderstandings are sometimes inevitable. Therefore, when misunderstandings occur, it's important to stay calm and clarify everything to avoid being in the same boat but heading in different directions. When facing difficulty or conflict, don't rush to anger or act impulsively. Sometimes, listening more is better than speaking more. It takes 3 years to learn to talk, but a lifetime to learn to be silent. Wise people, when angered, often ask themselves, is this worth getting angry over? Will anger help resolve the issue? Only after answering these questions do they act. In this world, if conflicts arise, there will be ways to resolve them. A kind attitude is the foundation for understanding and empathy. When the heart is not calm and the spirit is not peaceful, avoid arguing, as words spoken in this state lack sincerity and only create more tension. Many relationships become distant simply due to improper behavior. The consequence of not understanding the value of communication is separation. Controlling one's attitude is the key to mastering oneself. Those who learn to stay calm control their own mindset, and when they have control over their own mindset, nothing can hinder their success. Remember, the person who endures your moods truly loves you. So, don't let those who love you be hurt. Story 14. Cherishing others is the way to resolve resentment, build good relationships, and accumulate blessings. Once upon a time, there was a young man who was the only son of a wealthy family. From a young age, he was lazy and only interested in playing. His father worried that his son would be unable to live independently in the future, so he told him to go out, work, and bring back money to show him. Out of love, his mother secretly gave him money, telling him to hand it to his father at night. The young man wandered around all day without working and brought the money his mother had given him to his father in the evening. His father saw through this right away and threw the money into the fire. The young man watched without reacting. Day after day, the mother stopped giving him money, forcing him to work for himself. That night, he brought the money he had earned to his father. As before, his father threw it straight into the fire. This time, the young man panicked and rushed toward the fire to retrieve the money, crying out, "Father, I worked from morning till night all week to earn this. Why would you throw it in the fire?" The father smiled with satisfaction. This story shows us that in life, we truly value something only when we have worked hard for it. Things that come easily are often taken for granted. When we learn to cherish ourselves, we also learn to cherish others. Valuing the effort and dedication of others is a way of showing respect for them. In life, it is not easy to truly appreciate oneself, as not everyone can perceive how precious life is. A poet once wrote, "We do not fear death because we do not know the true value of life." Life is precious because we do not know where we came from or where we will go. How many people truly live for themselves, free from the constraints of fame or attachments? Cherishing others is even more challenging. The saying, "cherishing others is cherishing oneself," suggests that valuing others reflects the warmth of human relationships. How many people can put themselves in others' shoes and love others as they love themselves? There is a proverb that says, "Wasting others' time is as damaging as taking their fortune or life." Valuing others, at the very least, involves respecting their time, effort, and choices. Everyone who appears in our lives does so for a reason. This is fate. Cherishing all of these connections is the way to resolve resentment, build good relationships, and accumulate blessings for oneself. Story 15. You don't need to search for an opponent. You don't need to look for an opponent or argue with petty people. If everything is already prepared perfectly, then where is your value? The story of Jia Cat Luong and Lu Bai is a profound example of this. Jia Cat Luong never asked Lu Bai, "Why are we so short on arrows?" Quan Vu never questioned, "Why are our soldiers so poorly equipped?" Nor did Truong Phi ask Lu Bai, "What should we do when the enemy surrounds our city?" Yet, there was the story of borrowing arrows with straw boats, the legendary journey of crossing 5 passes and defeating 6 generals, and the bold move of cutting off the bridge to intimidate Tao Tao army. Tru Van attacked with just 20 soldiers and ultimately conquered 10 cities, bringing back 20,000 troops and 3,000 horses. The military order contained only 4 words: capture the city. If everything were prepared beforehand, your value and abilities would never be demonstrated. Only by daring to step forward can you encounter like-minded comrades and companions. It's like the story of the Monkey King, Sun Wukong, who met Pigsy and Sandy on his journey to retrieve the scriptures. Without embarking on his journey, Wukong would never have met these companions. So, take the first step, not because you already have someone to walk with, but because by daring to walk forward, you will gain companions along the way. Many people don't understand this principle and instead search for opponents to argue with. But in this world, no one is truly your opponent. Don't waste your time debating with people who lack character. Smile and be tolerant. The lion does not battle a mad wolf because defeating it brings no honor, only wasted time and potential harm. A lion father once taught his cub, "If beating a mad wolf brings no glory and only risks being bitten, why should we fight with such a creature?" Remember, in this world, there is no true opponent for you. Don't argue with those who aren't worthy, show them tolerance, and you'll realize that being tolerant of others is a way to elevate your own dignity. Story 16. Adversity is like a paper dragon. In life, everyone faces many challenges from the outside. But how these challenges ultimately affect you is a choice that remains in your hands. There was an old craftsman who created a paper dragon for his grandson. Inside the dragon, he left a small narrow opening just large enough to hold a few grasshoppers. When he placed a few grasshoppers inside, none of them survived, they all died. The old man explained, "Grasshoppers are impatient creatures. They only know how to thrash about without thinking to bite through the wall in front of them. They don't realize that if they just kept moving forward, they could exit from the other side. Despite having sharp mouths and strong legs, it's of no use." Then, the old man placed a few leaf-eating caterpillars inside the dragon and closed its mouth. Within a few minutes, the caterpillars began to emerge from the dragon's tail one by one. Reflecting on destiny, we realize that it is truly hidden within our own thoughts. Many people cannot overcome adversity, whether large or small, at different stages of life. Not because they are inferior to others, but because they lack the will to break through and the patience to seek a different path. They need to keep moving forward, one step at a time, until a new way appears before them.